Good evening. My name is Julio Mota. I am a member of the Latino Leadership Coalition. Si prefieres escuchar en español, levanten sus manos y le daremos un dispositivo para escuchar en español. We want to welcome you all to this forum for the Ward 1 and Ward 5 City Councilor candidates. We would like to thank the Salem Public Schools and the principal of Saltonstall Elementary School for supporting civic engagement in Salem by allowing us the use of the space for the forum. We thank our partners, Salem Access TV, for their professional services videotaping this forum so it can be viewed later by those who could not attend in person. We'd like to thank our interpreters, Alexandra Fortich and Eileen Munoz. And we're also grateful for the Point Neighborhood Association and the League of Women Voters, Salem, for partnering with us to organize this forum, as well as to the public for providing suggestions and issues to ask about in this forum. Our forum moderator this evening is Elsabel Rincon. Elsabel Rincon is the founder of the Welcome Immigrant Network in Salem. I'll turn it over now to Elsabel to begin the forum. Do you want it here?
Here. I did not give you a lot of feedback.
That's pretty good.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Jerzylo.
Thank you. Checking pronunciation. Thank you, Julia. Thank you all. It's always a pleasure to be here. Welcome to the City Councilor Candidate Forum for Wards 5, 1, and 5. This forum was planned jointly by the Point Neighborhood Association, the Latino Leadership Coalition, and the League of Women Voters of Salem. We have included candidates for Ward 1 and 5 city councilors in this forum because we are focusing tonight on issues relevant to the Point neighborhood. There are more than 2 candidates running in each of these wards. So residents of Ward 1 and Ward 5 will vote in a preliminary election on September 16th to narrow the race to 2 candidates. The Ward 1 City Councilor candidates in alphabetical order are Cynthia Jerzylo, Walter Morrell, Erin Turowski, and the Ward 5 City Councilor candidates in alphabetical order are Zachary, Calderon, John Hunt, Lydia King, and Frederic Norton. At this point, I would like to ask members of the audience to silence your cell phones. And please also be quiet during the forum so that everyone can hear the candidates. No cheers or jeers, please. And hold your applause until the end of the forum. All right, so I'll start by presenting the format and rules for the forum, and then we'll have the candidates' opening statements. The questions for this forum were obtained from members of the public. The forum organizers collected the questions and edited them for length and clarity. In League of Women Voters of Salem co-sponsored forums, the candidates are given questions and the opportunity to answer about their approach or ideas. They will not be engaging with one another and will not debate one another. There will be a 90-second opening statements from each candidate this evening. Then I will ask the prepared questions. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond, and there will be no closing statements tonight. So we'll start with the candidates' introductory statements. Again, each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond. The statements will go in the order the candidates will appear on the preliminary election ballot, and we'll be starting with Ward 1 and then move on to Ward 5. In your opening statements, please address why you're running for councilor and the skills you can bring to the position. We'll start with Ward 1, Cynthia Jerzylo.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Cindy Jerzylo, and I've had the honor of serving as Ward 1 City Councilor for the past year and a half. I'm a lifelong Salem resident and proudly served our community as a police officer for 33 years before retiring in 2018. My husband and I raised 2 children here, both of whom attended Salem Public Schools, starting at Bentley, then Collins Middle School, and graduating from Salem High School. Community service has always been a part of who I am. I helped found the Willows Neighborhood Association and served as its chair for 5 years before stepping down to take on my role as counselor. One project I'm especially proud of goes back 15 years when a group of neighborhood mothers and I came together to rebuild the Juniper Point Playground. After the city told us there was no money available, we raised $20,000 through community fundraising and partnerships. That effort inspired other neighborhoods to do the same, like the Common neighborhood, proving that when neighbors work together, we can make real change. As a city councilor, I've continued that hands-on problem-solving approach, whether it's addressing potholes, sidewalks, missing signs, tree concerns, or other quality of life issues. Ward 1 is unique and diverse, and I'm committed to being responsive, accessible, and results-driven. It has truly been an honor to represent you, and I look forward to continuing to serve this community. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Point Neighborhood Association for hosting tonight's forum. And I thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have candidate Walter Morrell.
Buenas noches y gracias por su tiempo esta noche. Good evening and thank you for being with us tonight. Participation is the most important part of the democratic process, and I look forward to earning your support on September 16th. Me llamo Walter y quiero ser su próximo Consejo Municipal de Zona 1. My name is Walter, and I want to be your next Ward 1 City Councilor. As a new father, I can say without hesitation, there's nowhere I'd rather live, work, and raise a family than right here in Salem. But I also see the opportunities to improve in areas like transportation and development, climate resilience, education, and housing. And to improve the lives of our neighbors, I believe we need fresh ideas and the courage to tackle them head on. What sets me apart from the other great candidates in this race is my professional career. I work for a trade association that represents 90+ union electrical contractors across New England and their 5,000+ workforce, where I provide education, communication, and advocacy. I work directly with our teams to navigate regulatory updates, along with legal and social changes and challenges. I also fight for fair wages and good working conditions at the local, state, and national level. Here in Salem, I ran the Palmer Cove Community Garden for 3 years and was instrumental in adding new beds and the gardeners to the current site. I also sit on the Bicycle and Shared Paths Committee, where I continue to help connect neighborhoods, and I'm proud to say we now have 20 e-bikes in our blue bike fleet. Gracias a todos, thank you, and let's get to work.
And candidate Erin Turowski.
Hi, my name is Erin Turowski, and I'm running for Ward 1 Council. Thank you to our organizers and our attendees for helping with tonight's forum. I moved to Massachusetts in 2010. I did my graduate training at MIT, and I'm now a veterinarian with a multi-practice group in Boston. Veterinarians are great. They know how to work with all kinds of people to solve their problems. And as a counselor, I think those communication skills would be really useful. I moved to the Point in 2016. I love that it's such an approachable community. I see a lot of my neighbors on the sidewalks and daily conversations that I have met from door knocking. And since 2019, I've been a volunteer and scuba diver at the New England Aquarium. If you haven't taken advantage of the free visits in September, please go and do that. It's a lot of fun. I think our biggest issue in Ward 1 is traffic. I've spent 2 years on the Transportation Commission. I was also on Salem's Safe Streets for All Task Force. I'm a co-founder of SWAG, Salem's Safe Walking Advocacy Group, and I want to make sure our transportation network is safe and equitable for everyone who uses it. Another major concern in our ward is flooding. I want to use my knowledge of science and engineering to find evidence-based solutions for our flooding issues and other climate-related problems. If I'm elected, I want to be a counselor who can use critical thinking to solve big problems, but also someone who's trustworthy and accessible enough that my constituents feel comfortable communicating with me when they need help. I think a veterinarian is a great blend of those attributes, and I hope I can convince you to think that way as well. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. And now we're crossing over to Ward 5, starting with Zachary Calderon.
Well, thank you to everybody for being here and to the League of Women Voters for hosting. My name is Zach Calderon. I am running for Ward 5 City Council. I think that my background really helps qualify me for this position. My entire career has been in either government or in government affairs, first as a research assistant on the House Armed Services Committee, and then as the government affairs manager for the Association for Commuter Transportation, and now as the advocacy program manager for the Ipswich River Watershed Association. I bring a perspective rooted in public service, equity, and accountability. I'm running to represent everyday people, renters, homeowners, small businesses, working families, and anyone who feels like City Hall is not hearing them. I'm here to listen and to learn, because I think that in order for us to have a resilient community, this dialogue has to be a two-way street. So thank you, everybody again, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to candidate John Hunt.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming out tonight. My background is slightly different from the rest of these candidates up here. I'm running because I've lived the reality of what government support can mean for a person, for a family, and for a future. I'm a biracial individual who spent most of my adolescent years growing up in government-subsidized housing, and I know what it's like to feel uncertain about the future, to live with a parent who is consistently worrying about bills, and to watch someone work long hours and still wonder if it will be enough. I also know what a difference it makes when government steps up, when systems work the way they're supposed to, and when communities rally around each other. My experiences growing up shaped me, they drive me, and they give me perspective that I think is missing from too many decision-making tables, not only in our city, but in our country. I understand how policy decisions play out in real time for working families, for young people trying to find stability, and for communities that are often overlooked. I bring those experiences with me to every room, every conversation, and if I earn your vote, to every vote that I take as your Ward 5 councilor. I'm here today because I want to ensure the kind of help that made a difference in my life is not only available, but is stronger for the next person who needs it. Whether it's affordable housing, upgraded schools, or safer streets, or simply knowing someone in government sees you, I want to be that someone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Lydia King.
Thank you to the League and the Latino Leadership Coalition, as well as Elzebel, for moderating this event and putting it all together. Thank you as well to SALT for hosting us here in this space, this wonderful space. I grew up in Lynn, Massachusetts, right down the road, in a Union Hospital household that was also a Union household. I went to school here in Salem. I went to the Greenhouse School down the road, and then later the charter school at Shetland Park for middle and high school. And I'm so lucky now to be settled down here in Salem with my fiance. We live over by Bagel World in that neighborhood. And I work in the Medicare space as my day job. I help people get Medicare supplement prescription drug plans, things like that. But outside of work, I've spent the last few years as a community organizer here in Salem. That organizing work includes, hosting community events, soliciting and reaching out to people for community feedback, and focusing on policy initiatives that our community wants to see prioritized. And that work has largely focused on the issues that our community has prioritized. So affordable housing, labor rights, immigrants' rights, and just improving our democratic processes. So I'm running for this seat because I believe the community needs more input in these huge projects that are coming coming here to Ward 5 in Salem in the next few years. And I really look forward to hearing everyone's questions tonight and the wonderful ideas from the other folks up here as well to see how we can just make Salem as wonderful as possible for everyone who lives here. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, candidate Frederic Norton.
We'll see about being least, that's okay. Good evening. My name is Frederic Norton. I'm running for Ward 5 City Council. You may have guessed that from me sitting up here. I grew up in an immigrant neighborhood in Dorchester. My grandparents were the first generation in this country, and I watched how gentrification and people not having an input in how any of that could happen destroyed that neighborhood, destroyed all of the culture that I grew up around, and ruined it for everyone coming after. My day job right now, I run logistics for the Salem Food Pantry. We move about 70,000 pounds of food a week. We fed 20% of the city of Salem last year. Before that, I worked for the city of Salem. I was a transportation coordinator for the Council on Aging, helping seniors get rides, and always and at every point making sure that it wasn't just making sure they had rides, but that it was rides with dignity. Because it's not enough to just help someone in a patronizing way, to say, here you go, now you're all set. It involves giving them choice, it involves giving them a voice, and it involves making sure that they're heard. I would love to be able to sit here and be your Ward 5 City Councilor. I feel that I bring a lot to the table, and as part of that is the simple idea that government is the application of our philosophy, it's the application of our ethics, it's the application of our ideas, in the same way that engineering is the application of physics. That's why it matters that we have the right ideas and that we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We will now turn to the questions. The responses will start with candidates in Ward 1, and then we'll move over to Ward 5. The candidate responses will be in alphabetical order, and then we'll move down one candidate, so the second question begins with the second person, and so on. So for the first question, we'll follow the same order as the introductory statements. And I would like to remind you that your responses will be limited to 90 seconds. And we do have two wonderful League of Women Voters members here with signs. So when that stop sign comes on, I am sorry, but we'll have to stop your responses. Okay? So the first question. The Prime Group has presented a proposal to develop Shetland Park and would like the City Council to support their proposal by approving a 40R Smart Growth Zoning Overlay District for the site. Please discuss what you see as the most important advantages and disadvantages of the Prime Group's proposal for the Point neighborhood, whether you support the proposal, and if not, what changes would you require in the proposal to make it acceptable? And we'll start with Cynthia in Ward 1.
Thank you. Thank you. For the past 2 years, I've been meeting with the Prime Group representative with Councilor Jeff Cohen, who's here tonight. We've met them practically every month to talk about their proposal. I think the proposal that they're bringing forward right now is too large for the area, the congested area that's there. I know they've come to the Point Neighborhood Association a few times, meeting with the residents. I think before we give them the 40R, there needs to be a lot of more community input. They have to listen to the residents, they have to listen to the community. It's a very congested area for the apartments, so it'll be over 1,000 apartments that they're proposing. The traffic in and out of that area is already congested. We just met last week, Councilor Cohen and I, with the Prime Group representatives and talked with their nonprofit groups. There's 13 of them in the building, and they haven't been very good landlords to them. So we're trying to get a discussion with them and try to work with them so they could be better leaders in the community. I think there's a lot more discussion that needs to be done with the community leaders and the community itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Walter?
Great, thank you. Great question. Yeah, so I'll start with the positives, and then I can tell you what I see as drawbacks on this proposal. Obviously, it's a big parcel of land. It's on the coast, and with I do like the idea of opening up 9 acres of parks and access, green space, community space. A lot of that along the waterfront. That's a huge plus for our community in general, all of Salem, but also obviously for the Point neighborhood. The proposal to move the school and give them a new building is also a huge benefit. When anyone's going to give you an investment in schools, I'm all for it. Other than that, it is giving a lot back. The things that I don't really like to see, I think it is too large. 1,200 units is far too many, and the affordable housing attached to that percentage is too low. So we need to tackle that. As Cindy mentioned, they're currently working with their landlord. They currently are the landlords of the space, and they haven't been great tenants. There's a huge, big trash cleanup that they have to actually send to City Hall. They need to get to in order to kind of proof of concept, if you will, before they tackle such a large project. Concerns that I've heard from the Point neighborhood are rising rents to that neighborhood, which when you do build, as in Seaport, we've seen in Boston, it does rise rents, and that would be a huge concern for a lot of folks that live in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Well, I live on Palmer Street, so this site is 100 yards from my front door, so I do have strong feelings about it. Generally, I feel that the way Shetland Park is right now is not sustainable. It's a giant underutilized parking lot. It's a heat island. It leaches asphalt chemicals. It doesn't offer any flood resilience. And my worry is that if we don't do anything to that site, then in 20 or 30 or 40 years, we're going to be looking at being displaced by water inundation no matter what. So I do think if we have somebody who's willing to step in and spend $1 billion to help provide some flood mitigation for the neighborhood, I think it's worth having a talk with them. And I think we do need to give them serious consideration, else we're going to be, down the road looking for $3 million for a seawall, and that's really hard to find money for. Some things I'd like to see changed, because I don't agree 100% with the current proposal. I think, first of all, they do need to better communicate with residents. It's been a little bit one-sided so far. I don't love the idea of there being monetized rental kayaks on the harbor front. I do like that there's a water ferry taxi option. I do like that they're offering potentially an electric shuttle to the T. I think better connectivity with public transit is really necessary in that area. I think it'd be great if we could replace the baseball fields that were moved from Palmer Cove Park when they revitalized it recently. But I really just think that we need to do more to make the neighborhood more resilient. And if we have somebody who's willing to step in, provide at least some affordable housing, we can do better than that. But I do support at least having the conversations to do something with the area.
Thank you. And moving over to Ward 5, Zachary, Calderon.
Thank you. So housing is absolutely a major issue, and we do need to increase our housing stock, but we have to do so thoughtfully and intentionally. And as of right now, I'm not yet convinced that Prime is the right neighbor to do that with. I have not been impressed by their involvement in the community. I don't think that they've been forthright or acting in good faith. They told nonprofits in Shetland that they would be allowed to stay, but then they raised the rent $5 a square foot. And that is not to say that they could not get their act together and put together a proposal that works for the community. But as of right now, I don't think that they are the right people to redevelop Shetland.
I would like to echo a few points. I'd like to start with, I think there are positives to this proposal, there are negatives. I think one thing that we all need to kind of come to grips with is that we are in a housing crisis. And it's not just in Salem, it is in the state and in many cities across the country. You can ask anyone that knows me, I'm not typically one to stand up for billionaires, but when people want to come to Salem and invest large sums of money, not just in their property, but in community projects such as rebuilding the seawall, building community green spaces. It's something that needs to be taken seriously. I have heard concerns from people or current tenants there that they aren't the best landlords, and I do think that should be taken seriously. But I also do think that we need to be cognizant of the message that we send to companies and developers when they want to come to Salem, and what it says to people in the future if we turn away Prime Group, which might be the right decision, but how we do that and the message it sends to future investors in the city of Salem, I think is very important. Ultimately, I do think more community input would be needed. And as of right now, I do think I agree with many others. I would not support it. However, I very much could be swayed under the right circumstances.
In general, I think that the property should be redeveloped, right? A lot of the property is sitting underutilized. I went to the charter school, so also very familiar with the property and the downsides of how it is developed right now. I think it's important to understand that if it's not prime, it will be someone else at some point who tries to redevelop this property. And that's good. Like, that's a good thing for our community, investing that money in our community. So I think we have a moment right now to decide as a community, independent of prime, honestly, what do we want to see in this space? What would we want to see in an ideal world in that space right there? And I've been really thrilled to see them working with the CDC, with Felicia, and with the Point Neighborhood Association to be starting to have that conversation, but I do agree with everyone who said that conversation has not happened enough. I will let folks know there is a community meeting happening on Tuesday, September 30th at 5:30 p.m. at the North Shore CDC location on Lafayette Street, across from Wendy's. So if you would like to engage in that conversation and make it a two-way conversation, we would love to have you there. My big thing is the affordability with the housing that goes there. I do think we need more affordability. I will also say Salem lacks a big enough commercial and industrial tax base just for those businesses here for our taxes. So I do want to see that space doesn't get entirely removed with this property. It's just one thing there, but.
All right, I'll try to add something new. It's a little bit more difficult because I still work in Shetland Park. But at the moment, I can say that we can call it what it is. This is gentrification with a capital G. I love the idea of parks. I love the idea of opening up the streets into the Point neighborhood. But 1,200 units, most of which, even at the lowest affordability that they're offering, won't accommodate anyone working a job in Salem to live alone there. A teacher with a starting salary of 55 to 60 grand can't afford an apartment, even at the lowest level of affordability. Your average employee for the city that's salaried and can't do overtime can't afford to live there. And that leaves out every service worker imaginable in Salem. The other part of that too is that we lose one of the larger employers in the Point. We will be losing Jillian's, right? That's an important thing. We lose the entire Department of Transitional Assistance in the back of Building 4. And currently the plans have no concept of even having trucks there to retain anyone at an industrial scale. It is, not to be too insulting to Somerville, but this is Assembly Square Row, except it's going to be put in Salem. The lovely ideas about the park and everything, those are great. Those are lovely. I love the idea of putting up some better seawall protection. I love the fact that they're going to invest. But given how they're going to build it and what they're planning to do, their garage is going to be underground, which means that it's going to absorb all that water coming through.
Thank you, candidates. So for the next question, as a reminder, we'll be moving to the second person alphabetically. So for Ward 1, we'll start with Walter Morrell. And for Ward 5, we'll start with John Hunt. And now to question number 2. Wards 1 and 5 have the most shoreline of all of Salem's wards, and parts of the Point are vulnerable to sea level rise. Do you believe the city's resiliency and adaptation measures are sufficient?
Thanks for that. So, we can call it climate change, we can call it adaptation, but it's definitely here. We are surrounded by water from Palmer Park all the way out to the Willows and then back down to Collins Cove. So that would be a top priority for myself. I lived in a flood zone for 8 years when I rented out in Palmer Street. We live in a flood zone now on Forrester. It continues to increase our HOA fee every 6 months, it seems, so it adds to the cost of living. So it's something that we need to put as a high priority right now. So with that, I mean, we obviously just lost the 30 million to the offshore wind project. What we need to do there is continue to educate the community on the offshore wind project, the benefits it will bring as a renewable, but also as a community, what jobs it will bring to this area and the industry that it will bring with it. So when we are ready, the money does make sense. We're ready to tackle that project. We're all bought in as a community. When it comes to coastal resilience, permitting is a big issue. The Collins Cove project, that took 4 years to permit, and it was a 1 month build out. So we need to tighten the screws on that permitting process to ensure that those projects, much like we have down at the Willows, much like we did here at Palmer Park, are done quickly to ensure, because we don't have 4 years. If you add those up for each project, you're running to a decade. So yeah, it's something that we definitely need to tackle, and it's on all sides here in water. So thanks.
So I think it's too soon to tell. We have projections for what the flooding is going to do in 2030 and 2050 and 2070, and it just feels like the water keeps getting higher and higher, and the water in my basement keeps getting higher and higher. There are certainly efforts to do so. If you look at Resilient Together, the plan between Salem and Beverly, the first step is talking to people. There's a lot of effort devoted to having bilingual communications, community outreach. They have regular meetings at Espacio, so I'm happy to see those conversations happening. We've got some preliminary changes. Palmer Cove Park restoration has been a big part of that, with modifying their seawall, the changes at Forest River Park as well. I think we need to continue to adapt our personal choices, because we can modify the environment to some extent, but we can also do things personally, like being more energy efficient in our daily life, in our transit methods, in our choice of reusable plastics. But I think really there's work to be done. There's also a project coming up with the North Shore CDC and SAFE. They're doing a heat mapping project for the point. They've been putting little sensors up to track where the heat islands are and where we're most affected by global warming and climate change. So really excited to see how that project progresses. I think we can use that information well, but I think it's an all hands on deck situation because we're gonna be looking at some pretty bleak flood maps if we don't change something soon.
Over the past 7 years, I've worked closely with the Willows Neighborhood Association and the City of Salem to combat coastal flooding in and around the Willows. I'm proud to say that this persistence has paid off. Recently, Governor Healy announced 2 major state matching grants for Salem, nearly $290,000 for the Beach Avenue Juniper Beach seawall that gave way 2 years ago, and more than $1.4 million for the Columbus Ave seawall reconstruction. I want to thank Mayor Pangalo, the City Engineering and Public Service Department, my predecessor, Council Bob McCarthy, as well as Senator Lovely and Representative Cruz, who have all been important partners. But most importantly, I want to recognize the neighbors who never gave up. Through monthly meetings, even during COVID, their leadership and commitment helped secure these grants. Thanks to this teamwork, the Columbus Ave seawall will be rebuilt and our community will be more resilient. With all the other seawalls in Salem, one just gave way down at Forest River, down off of Lafayette Street. You see every year something else is giving way. I think the city needs to definitely pay more attention to the seawalls and put more money into the infrastructure. There's a lot of programs out there through the state and the federal, that we can get to Salem and start working on the infrastructure, the flood mitigation, and also all the seawalls. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll cross over to Ward 5 candidates, starting with John Hunt.
Firstly, I would agree with Erin's point. I do think it's too early to tell whether this plan is going to be successful. I am someone who thinks that climate change is real. I do think that we should be in a mindset to take the necessary steps to mitigate any potential climate change, whether that is additional infrastructure, upgrading our seawalls, additional pumps. I think community outreach is important to change the way the community, not just in Salem, but in the state, sees this issue. But I think it'll be important that come 2030, 2040, that we're not looking back wishing that we had done more. I think that it's important to take these steps as soon as possible. I do think that it would be, at this point in time, silly to rely on federal funding. Sure, we might get some, but I do think that is something that's not guaranteed at this point. So I also think the city needs to begin to look at other methods or other ways to get funding for infrastructure, which I think is the most important part of this. Yeah, thank you.
So at Palmer Cove Park, there is a project that has been discussed for a few years now, and I've been to some of the community meetings to put in a seawall over down that would obviously protect large parts of the Point neighborhood, but also Pioneer Terrace and those surrounding communities. I know the 2018 flooding that we saw there was particularly bad and particularly alarming for the development there. If we've got a lot of older folks, if an emergency vehicle needs to get through, flooding is a huge problem for everyone. So I definitely would want to see that project move forward with those seawalls going in. It's a 5-foot seawall that they want to put in at Palmer Cove Park. I do think we need pumping stations for flooding, and I do think we need to upgrade our drainage systems. I met a woman on Lafayette Place a few weeks ago who was telling me that a city plumber told her that her pipes on her street were put in when Lincoln was in office. So updating drainage systems definitely would be helpful. And in terms of funding, I know that there is some state funding still available. I know federal funding is a whole other thing, but we do have MVP funds that come to the city and are, I believe, going up in the next few years. So there is an opportunity there. It's important that we prioritize where that money goes based on community feedback, and that we solicit feedback from often underserved communities, which is why I'm so happy this forum's happening here tonight. So those are just a couple of things. Thank you.
Cool. All right. So in terms of coastal resilience, do I think what we're doing now is enough? No. I don't think anyone thinks that what we have up now is going to last 20, 30 years down the line. In terms of what we can do, in addition to everything that's been discussed, and I'm going to keep trying to add new things as I can, I'm also going to suggest that dredging Salem Harbor may be a way of actually helping for this. In addition to economically, we could get bigger boats in. It will also reduce the flooding by lowering the seabed level. Trying to design those kinds of engineering solutions over the long term are really, I think, what's going to make a bigger difference than just reinforcing the seawalls themselves. Not that we shouldn't also do that. Additionally, there are also things called dolons. I don't know if anyone's familiar with them. They're designed to be interlocking shapes that you drop into a harbor. There's been a lot of success with these in Europe and in a lot of coastal cities. They basically interlock but allow some water through, so it's not a single wall trying to hold back the entire force and weight of the ocean. It actually slows down soil and shore erosion and can be used to mitigate flooding as well. So this is also another solution that should be looked at, could be looked at, and there are grants available for installing them. These are all things that we can do. I was actually there in the 2018 flooding at Pioneer Terrace, actually helping to get seniors out of there in the city van. In the meantime, but these are all things that we can be doing now, because even if we do everything.
Thank you, candidate. That was great, respecting the time. All right. Zach, that's right, because we're moving that. And now candidate Zachary Calderon.
I think that what the city is doing is a good start. We absolutely do have to raise seawalls and raise the berms out there. But I think that there's a lot more that we can do. And Lydia had alluded to this, but there is a state program called the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. It is a grant fund that towns and cities across Massachusetts can apply for to address resiliency concerns. It's currently allocated $100 million over 5 years, or about $20 million a year. But in this year's environmental bond bill, it is projected to go up to over $360 million a year, which is going to more than triple the amount of available dollars for communities in Massachusetts. I also serve on the Sustainability, Energy, and Resiliency Committee, and I have gotten to work with our Sustainability Director here in Salem, Neil Duffy, very closely. And if I get elected to this position, I would like to work with him and city engineering to aggressively pursue those dollars.
Thank you. And we'll continue to move down the line. For the next question for Ward 1, we'll start with Erin Turowski and Lydia King for Ward 5. How would you hold developers accountable for creating affordable housing units using Salem income guidelines consistent with the city's median income and a local preference for renters?
So I think the strongest opportunity we have to do that is when we're in the planning stages of a development. Like if we're talking about what we need to do at Shetland Park, we have the most leverage right now when we're still trying to figure out what the details are of the project. Right now, we're slated to have, according to the current plan, 10% at 60% AMI, 10% at 80 AMI. I think we can and should do better than that. We can put this into a community benefits agreement, and we should absolutely have some kind of agreement like that for this development if it happens. There's also some conversation about whether, our AMI here in Salem is a little different than the one in Boston. So maybe we need to rethink where we set our levels for affordability defined on that parameter. But we just need to make sure that we're looking ahead, doing the most we can, adapting our zoning to make the housing less expensive to build in the first place, and making sure that we're really taking advantage of every opportunity we can to build effectively and efficiently. We should still be looking at things like considering more parking minimums land, especially in areas like Shetland Park that are pretty close to the train. I take the train every day. It's less than a mile walk. If you can walk or you can bike there, that really does save you some money and make your housing more affordable if you don't have to rely on a car to get to work. And also advocating for better transit connectivity from that side as well. So we can leverage these things at this point, and I think we should and continue to do so.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from candidate Cynthia Jerzylo.
Thank you. I believe affordable housing is one of the most important issues facing Salem. I support projects like the Leaford Terrace redevelopment, which offers a mix of elderly one-bedroom units along with 1- and 2-bedroom homes. And I also strongly support the work being done by the CDC, including the St. Mary's Hawthorne Lofts project and the conversion of the old St. James School on Federal Street into senior housing. These are great examples of how we can reuse older vacant buildings to create affordable homes while respecting the character and historic design of our neighborhoods. I don't believe, though, the high-rise developments that don't fit the scale of the community have the answer. Instead, we need careful planning, strong community input, and more accountability from developers to ensure true affordability in new projects. Partnerships with organizations like the CDC and other nonprofits are vital if we want to expand affordable housing opportunities in Salem without sacrificing our city's unique character. Thank you.
Thanks. It all starts with a conversation with developers. I work with developers and contractors every day at my day job. So you really just need to lay out what we want from the beginning and hold to that. There's no wiggle room. They're going to try and push you in one way or the other, or dangle a nice carrot in front of you, but you just got to push forward on the percentages that we want of affordability and continue that forward. If that developer doesn't want to do it, then you just go to the next one. There's many out there and someone's going to pick it up. In housing in general, I think there's obviously new development is crucial and we need to continue the conversation around that. But we also need to look at our ordinance that is already in place with the Salem short-term rentals. That requires to be owner occupied. Again, let's enforce that rule if it's a rule. That kind of comes down to Airbnbs and anywhere else, Verbo, how else you get your people coming in, tourists. And then educate the homeowner on the affordable accessory dwelling units. There's benefits there and value to the homeowner. If we were able to create more of those, it's another affordable housing option. It's a three-prong approach. that I think we can take there. But on the developer point, I mean, it really just starts with the conversation, push what we want and hold our ground. It's just what you need to do. Thanks.
Thank you. And for Ward 5, starting with candidate Lydia King.
Thank you. So, of course, holding developers accountable to AMI requirements and making those AMI requirements as universal as possible is just one tool in our toolbox. I would also love to see, there was legislation introduced in Salem earlier this year for a community benefits ordinance, which would essentially require that any property of a certain size would have to meet additional community standards and community input standards, which could include increased affordability. So that's another tool we have to try and require that from developers for them to move forward. I also want to point out, though, that it's not just about having affordable units, it's also having high quality affordable units and having these units be good for renters, like good renter protections and things like that. Cindy mentioned the Lily Fort Terrace project, and I actually have concerns about that project. I love that it adds affordability, but I do have concerns about the fact that those renters once had public housing rights, which are much higher levels of rights than they now receive as part of that now privately managed property, right? So when we think about renters' rights and the different levels of rights, we have to be thoughtful about making sure that we're not removing renters' rights and tenants' rights just for affordability. We have to also, we have to add units, we have to balance the developers' needs to make some profit, but also we have to balance the fact that these renters deserve high quality units with good rights for themselves as tenants.
I just kind of want to start by explaining something because I feel like everyone on this dais probably knows what AMI means. To briefly explain it, because this got brought up last night, AMI is area median income. That means what is the median income for a given household? So the way affordability is calculated is it's a certain percentage of the area's median income. Because we're lumped in with Boston and Cambridge, a 2-income household is about $113,000 for our area median income. If you're wondering why affordable rents don't look affordable, it's because it's calculated based off of that. So to explain, so when we talk about what we mean by affordable and why 80% of AMI is not necessarily helpful for Salem residents, it has to be closer to like 50. This is what we mean. This is why we say it that way, because that actually is much closer to the Salem area and Essex County generally. So just to clarify that, because that did get asked a few times last night afterwards. So I think our best bet in terms of who we work with is usually the North Shore CDC. I think that not-for-profit developers are usually better because they actually have a goal towards assisting the community. A for-profit developer is there to make profit, and I don't begrudge anyone making a buck, but they're not going to be looking out for the community. They're there to make a dollar. And so when we do look at developers, that's the kind of thing that we have to look at, and when we force the different AMIs, I think that's what we have to be at.
So I want to both hold developers accountable and make sure that they are meeting city regulations, but I also want to work with them and be able to give them the cover to actually be able to provide affordable housing. And this is something that has been mentioned, but looking at parking minimums and being much more intentional about where we have them and where we don't. So as of right now, across most of Salem, developers are required to provide 1.5 spaces of parking per unit. One parking space is 300 square feet, and so you're looking at 450 square feet per unit. And so for 2 units, that's 900 square feet, and 3 units is 1,350 square feet, and so on. These are figures that could be describing not parking, but additional housing, and in so doing, you raise the housing stock and you lower the price, or you allow the developers to be able to lower the price.
I would just like to echo to start what Fred said. I think the most important part is making sure that when we're talking about affordable housing, that it's affordable for the people that live in Salem. Again, I said it in one of my earlier questions, we are in a housing crisis. We need to make sure that we are catering to the residents of Salem specifically. And when it comes to holding developers accountable, I think community benefits agreements are a great tool, but they don't matter if no one enforces them or stands up to developers when they're in the middle of a project. I do think taking a look at zoning regulations, parking minimums are very important. I would like to see more mixed use space. So maybe if that means putting residential units in commercial zones, if their first floor is a commercial space, I think would be very beneficial to us. I also, I love that song. It's my favorite. I think what's most important though, and what I challenge all of our people to do, aside from maybe hitting the silent button on that, is to relook at the way that we view our neighbors. And I understand we want to keep character in our neighborhoods and high rises don't look the best, but if that is what it takes to make sure we're building affordable housing and that your neighbors can remain in our community and that people who want to come to our great city can come and afford to live here, I challenge us to make that decision to put what's best for others in front of maybe sort of our personal desires or needs. Thanks.
All right, thank you, candidates. We're going to shake it up a little bit, and we're going to have Ward 5 start with the next question with Frederic, and then we'll move back to Ward 1. So, Wards 1 and 5 are densely populated areas. How would you propose to alleviate issues caused by increased vehicle traffic?
Oh, good, something easy. Good, someone laughed. So the first thing is, obviously, we have to deal with alternatives to car use. There's no way around that. I walk to work largely every day, and I think that we do have to look at putting in bike lanes, and I would actually probably advocate, even though I don't like the look of it, something very similar to North Street, because it's remarkably effective both in terms of in minimizing danger and increasing the amount of use that we can get out of Lafayette Street for bikes. I know we have the bike path on Canal Street. It's lovely, but if you're on the other side of Ward 5, it's not really helping you out in terms of cutting all the way across. So that's the first immediate one. More reliable, perhaps a city shuttle bus might actually be honestly a best option as well. Something that's actually running north to south, because that's actually when originally we had done a study at the city to look at that. We found that north to south traffic was perhaps some of the least serviced areas, especially in North Salem, and because even Ward 1 has the trolley during the season. But those are the ways that I think we can try and alleviate it by minimizing people's need to drive rather than trying to perhaps decrease off-street parking, especially when we have to take our cars off the street in the wintertime.
Thank you, candidate Zachary. Calderon?
Yeah, I think that in order to alleviate traffic congestion, we have to give people the infrastructure to commute from A to B without driving, and I think that bike lanes are a very important part of that. A specific policy that I have been an advocate for here in Salem are parking benefit districts. Parking benefit districts are a zone drawn around a minimum of 99 metered spots. And what happens is the funds from those meters, instead of going back into the general fund, actually get reinvested into that zone to create more pedestrian infrastructure. So sidewalk repair, planting trees, sheltered bus stops, bike lanes, things like that. The second half of that is that you market rate those metered spots to shoot for 80% occupancy and 20% vacancy at any given time. And this also helps address traffic congestion, because when there's always a parking spot available, cars are not circling the block trying to find parking.
I think traffic, or alleviating traffic is an important issue in Salem. I know personally, I drive a lot for work. I'm on the road about 20 to 25,000 miles in a year. So I'm sitting in a lot of traffic in a given time. So I think protected bike lanes are a very important part of that. I would like to see not just increased train service into Boston, but more reliable train service into Boston. I would like to see local bus service. I would like to collaborate with the MBTA and the state on trying to get localized bus service through Salem. If that's not an option, I am also a big fan of taking regional approaches to things. So if that's maybe partnering with someone like Lynn and Beverly and making our own regional bus service, similar to BAT, the Brockton Area Transportation System, I think that would help alleviate a lot of the traffic as well. What I think is important, and something I hear when I'm knocking on doors a lot, is especially from our older citizens, is they think we're trying to take their cars away and we expect them to walk and get groceries, and that's absolutely not the case. We want to give options to those who are able and willing to use a mode of transportation outside of a car, so that those who do need to use a car can do so in a comfortable manner.
When we think about why we are getting in the car and going from point A to point B, point A is usually your home, but point B can be something that changes pretty dynamically. I think that having more small locations like what we had with the Daily Table, right? A local grocery store, more B1 zoning, we'd call it, those small businesses make it so people's trips are less far. I think that's also an important part of how we build our city to make it so we can be less reliant on cars, or at least with shorter trips with cars. Another thing, we've all talked about alternative modes of transportation. I'm definitely a fan of bike lanes in general. We talk about it's a longer term project, but the South Salem train station stop, obviously that would be something that would totally help reduce our dependence on cars as a community. Another big piece of it though is who would use that overpass over the railroad right there. A lot of kids right now going home from school are forced to take either the Salem Skipper or forced to have a parent drive them if they're at the high school if they want to come to our neighborhood, because it's such a long walk to get all the way around the railroad tracks. So having that overpass as part of the South Salem train station project would help kids be able to, teenagers get home more easily. I also would say just expanding the service for the Salem Skipper. I've heard a lot of complaints that recently, especially in the Point neighborhood, the wait times have been absurdly long for the Skipper. So that's just something I'd like to see expanded in general. Thanks.
Thank you. And coming back to Ward 1, we'll start with candidate Cynthia Jerzylo.
Traffic is probably one of the biggest complaints I get as a counselor. Over the past year and a half, I've worked closely with the Transportation and Parking Commission on traffic calming measures in the Point neighborhood. Next spring, the city will be implementing speed bumps on Harbor Street, Dow Street, Palmer Street, and Levitt Street. And funding has also been allotted to this year's budget to add a crosswalk on Congress Street, connecting the South Harbor Walkway to the Harbor Walk behind Pickering Wharf. I've also met with members of the Parking Commission to discuss ways to make the Derby and Congress Street intersection safer for both pedestrians and motorists. Going forward, I will continue to work side by side with residents and city departments to ensure that our streets are safe, accessible, and welcoming for everyone. I think I do like the bike paths. I don't think they're as safe as they could be. The one on Canal Street is perfect. I think that's wonderful, how it's off-road, it's lighted. The one on Fort Ave, the community had no input when it was implemented. I don't think it's safe. They've already had one fatality there. I think it needs to be, bike lanes needs to be raised with a curbing, better lighting. I think it's a wonderful form of transportation, but it needs to be done right. The ones on North Street, I am not in favor, and I hope they don't do the same on Lafayette Street. Thank you.
Great. Obviously we have a reliance on cars as a community, which we need to step away from, using bikes, using public transportation, but that's not going to happen overnight. Folks still need to get their kids to doctor's appointments that aren't on the public transportation network. We need to get to offices that might be off the public transportation network. So we can't rely just on that. We do need to improve last mile transportation here in Salem. We've done a great job with Salem Skipper. As Lydia said, I'd like to see that expanded. This Blue City bikes, we've just added 20 of the e-bikes, which obviously allow you to go further distances, which is a great addition there. We can continue to build out other hubs around the city in the Blue Bike network. Car safety, I know the Point neighborhood, a lot of one-ways, a lot of parking on both sides. It's congested, but we need to continue to push for safety measures when it comes to cars, because safety and cars go hand in hand. So I would advocate for speed bumps at all parks and recreational areas and schools. The Mary Jane Park is a great example for that down in the Point neighborhood. You have cars that students and kids are darting out from to get to the park, to the water pad, and we just need some mitigation there for those cars that are going 25, 30 miles an hour, which in a 20 mile an hour zone. So as long as we can continue to push for different modes of transportation, we need to continue to fight there for a greener, better future. Thank you.
Oh, goody. So, yeah, I mean, the answer is if you want to cut down on traffic, you just have to make it easier for people to get around without a car. And you have to realize that some people are going to need a car or want a car no matter what. But we really need to encourage and support people who are willing to travel by walking, cycling, micromobility devices like scooters, and just really protected bike lanes are a big part of that, or in multi-use paths, because you can, they're very confidence building for new riders. They help you get where you're going safely. I have 2 friends who've been hit and right hooks while they're riding their bikes on Lafayette Street. So definitely we'll be excited to see some changes as part of that redesign. We need to provide better connectivity between our bike routes between Canal Street and where the bike lane picks up on Washington Street. We need to provide better storage for bikes once people get to their destination, more secure racks, more racks, racks everywhere, well-lit racks. I was part of a group that worked on a bicycle parking ordinance to try to make this a little bit easier for some of our new developments. And yeah, we need to advocate for the South Salem rail station. Absolutely. That's going to make it easier for people who live all the way in wards 5 and 7, who would otherwise need to drive a couple miles to get to the train. If we can put that there, and if we can electrify the line, cut down on headways, that'll make it so much easier for those people to get into Boston and get up to the North Shore. And the goal is really just to promote travel that doesn't require a car, make it as easy as possible for everybody so that you're not tempted to get into a car and drive, you know, if your trip is maybe 1.5 miles or less.
Thank you. And now we have a karaoke break. Who's next? I'm just making sure you're all still with us. We'll keep going. All right, so we'll go back to Ward 5, and we'll start with Zachary Calderon and keep moving alphabetically as we have. The next question: what do you believe should be the city's stance on immigration enforcement?
Yeah, so immigration enforcement is the federal government's prerogative. It's not the states, and it's not the cities. And the city of Salem is not obligated to do the work of the federal government for it. There was the sanctuary city ordinance that was passed in 2017. That did say that prohibited city staff from asking residents about their immigration status. There was language that was stripped out of it that also that prohibited the city from handing over documentations to ICE. And I would like to introduce an amendment to that ordinance to add that language back in.
Thanks. I would just like to echo what Zach said. I think it is the federal government's job. I think we need to reshape the way we view our elected officials at a local level. I do think it would be important, if I were your Ward 5 counselor, to be standing up for people who don't have a voice. However, I don't think that there is much that we can do. I think the ordinance that we have is fantastic. I would support an amendment that Zach had mentioned. I also just think it's important that, as your counselor, that we work with our communities to stand up for people who don't have a voice, and to make sure that those who are vulnerable are protected. One thing I would like to see, and I'm not sure the legality of it from a city level. I would love to see an ordinance where we don't allow any sort of law enforcement agency to perform or conduct any tasks while wearing a mask. I think it's important that people understand who's approaching them. That way they can respond in an appropriate manner. I think a lot of times things are done with this administration maliciously, but I also think a lot of times there are just mistakes that are made because someone who's being approached doesn't understand who's approaching them. So I would advocate for a lot of these things. Thank you.
While it is not our fault that we are in this position, it is absolutely our responsibility to respond to the position that we are all in as a community. I think it's important that we listen to the immigrant community and what they are asking for, and listen to the groups here in Salem and on the North Shore, like WIN, like the Luce Network, and what they are asking for from their local representatives. I talk a lot to people in this community, and I know that one thing I've heard, for example, the city of Boston has an immigration services office. It's similar to our constituent services office here in Salem, but it is people who are actually trained to help people with going through the immigration process, which is already a daunting process, and it's especially daunting when the legislation changes every single day. So you really do need to have a really in-depth understanding of that legislative process and everything that could be different for every single person's different immigration journey, because it changes the legality of it all. So I would love to see Salem have an immigration office where we actually put some resources into having trained professionals from the city of Salem who can help people with their immigration journey. I also would, of course, like to see, I actually love the idea of the no-masked officers in the city. And then I also would love to see, of course, everyone on this stage, honestly, take a very public stance in support of our immigrant community, especially as they're undergoing scary things happening right now in our community. So thank you.
I'll try to watch my language as I go into this topic. So I wrote an article in support of the Sanctuary City Ordinance when it was first written. I will stand by the idea that we should not be involved with the federal government in enforcing these things, that we should not be using our time, resources, etc. I think that now, more than even then, there is a moral and philosophical imperative to not assist, at minimum, to not assist in any way. More than that, even, it's also worth pointing out that even if you don't believe that that's right for moral and philosophical reasons, and I don't know why you wouldn't, but even if you don't believe that, it's also important to remember that if ICE makes a mistake and we hold the wrong person, the city is financially liable because those are not warrants. So even if I can't persuade you for philosophical and moral reasons, please consider the idea that it comes out of your wallet. So to that end, I think one of the other things that we can do, and I think that the House of the Seven Gables has done an amazing job of bringing in attorneys to talk to people about what can be done. I attended one of those lectures. What can you do when ICE shows up at your not-for-profit? How can we make sure that Luce is being informed? How are we spotting for our neighbors? How are we looking out for them? And because that's the other part of that too. These are our neighbors. These are our people. It doesn't matter what the feds say in that sense. There are limits because they're law enforcement, but we can't be afraid to help look out for our fellows.
Thank you. And we'll cross over to Ward 1 with candidate Walter Morrell.
Great, thanks. I remember in Lowell 20 years ago when my dad received his citizenship, and just the amount of pride in that room. It was filled with over 200 families because they do them in big groups. It was pretty moving. It sticks in my mind today, and that was 20 years ago. My stance on it is ICE doesn't have a home here in Salem. We need to protect all residents, no matter where they're from, their backgrounds. I will continue to fight for that. There's not really much wiggle room there for me. We also need to continue to protect free speech. I feel like that's also being targeted, if it's online or just in person. So it is something that we need to make sure everyone feels that they have a voice here, and no matter their view, on any subject matter. So that's, pretty much my stance. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry for me. So on that one.
People are people. These people are our neighbors. These people are here because they've set up lives here and they've been part of our communities and they work hard and sometimes they do jobs that we don't want to do, and they are contributing people, and we should absolutely continue to allow them to live here. I just want to get that straight from the beginning. From a practical standpoint, cooperating with federal enforcement takes money, resources, and time away from SPD. I think Salem PD does a great job. I think our CIU does a great job. The other consequence of that is that if we have residents who are afraid to talk to the police when they really need them, it's going to make residents very challenged when they're trying to get help from the police. And we want our residents, no matter where they're from, to be able to approach our police confidently and with the knowledge that they won't be prosecuted for that. I think we just need to learn to communicate with our neighbors more. If you see something happening that looks like an ICE raid, call loose. We just had ICE here on Washington Street Saturday night. They are coming, they are targeting us, they are here. So know what to do know your rights training, carry a red card, have a loose number saved on your phone. Like, these are all things we can do to help our neighbors. I am very happy that Salem's policy is not to cooperate with the federal law enforcement, and I respect and I marvel at their stance to protect our neighbors, because the Pilgrims were undocumented, right? And everybody is so proud to be from the Pilgrims, but we need to remember that at some point, most of us came here without papers, or at least our relatives did. People are people.
Thank you. Immigration is part of Salem's identity. Many of our residents came here legally, but now they're facing uncertainty or even the risk of being reclassified as undocumented. We need to work with federal leaders to extend legal protection, to create a clear pathway to residency and make sure families know where to turn for support. The issue is personal to me. My grandmother immigrated from Poland into Salem in 1915, and my mother came from Austria after World War II. Salem has always been a welcoming city for immigrants, from the House of Seven Gables offering English classes a century ago to today's community organizations like the Point Neighborhood Association, helping families navigate the system. I know Lucy Cacciato and others at the Point have even worked with the District Attorney's Office to support immigrant families. Having served for many years as a police officer in Salem, I understand how our public safety system works. I know that if there's a violent criminal wanted in our community, our police department is aware and they will act. We can protect our residents while ensuring that immigrant families feel safe and supported. I'm committed to protecting that legacy and ensuring our immigrant neighbors can continue to feel safe, supported, and able to contribute to the community we all share.
Thank you, candidates. Moving right along, we'll go back to Ward 5, starting with candidate Lydia King. The city has proposed to build a new high school, which would be funded partly by the state and partly by Salem. As a council member, will you support construction of the new high school by 1, voting in favor of issuing a bond order to fund the project, and 2, voting to include a debt exclusion initiative on the ballot for Salem voter approval? Why or why not? And how will you communicate your views to the public to encourage them to vote with you?
I would support both of the votes that relate to the new high school project. The reason I support it is that we have to either upgrade the existing building or we have to build a new building. The state has not given us any other options just due to the outdated facilities. If we were to just upgrade the new building, it would cost us about $350 million to the Salem taxpayers. Sorry, upgrade the existing building. If we were going to build a new building, it would cost total project would be more, $450 million, but we would only pay roughly half of that because the state funds the other half. So it's overall cheaper for us to build a new building to the Salem taxpayer. I also want to point out that the mayor was saying this on Sunday, that if we had to go with the other route where we do the upgrading to the existing building, a lot of that money would be the money that is currently going to sidewalks here in Ward 5 and the Point, which I know everyone cares about their sidewalks, so I definitely don't want that. I also just think it's a great project for the community. I think it would give us an opportunity to work with our regional partners to expand CTE programs and really just take kids back from Essex Tech that have been going over there and just improve the variety that we have available. I also am thrilled to see the idea for all the athletics fields to be all on that campus together. It makes access to athletics so much better for students and just more accessible for everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is kind of a no-brainer in that sense. It's both cheaper, it's more effective. It will, in the long term, be better for all Salem residents and ensures that we don't have to worry as much about footing that entire bill, as Lydia said, at $350 million and at the cost of sidewalks, repairs, et cetera, and everything that's going to happen in the city. The easy way to communicate that is, I think, simply like that. I think that's the simplest way to make it real clear. It does not have to be a complicated math formula. Either we pay the full amount, $350 million, or we pay about half that. And so I think that that's actually in and of itself an easy sell. I'm very much in favor of, I would very much vote for the increase in taking on bonds. I think it's wonderful to have it on the ballot, and I would be encouraging everyone to vote for it as well. This is an easy opportunity to improve a lot of things. I had the privilege of working in the original Salem High School building over on Broad Street. I'm so glad we upgraded from that, but I think it's time that we actually moved on to another building as well. I think this one has served its time. It's done well. It's been great, but it is time to create a new building that dates to within the last 100 years. Thank you.
So, not to speak for John, but I think it's safe to say that all the Ward 5 candidates are in pretty close lockstep on this issue. I don't know how much more I have to add to the figures. What I will say, what I've heard from the mayor is that while the price tag, if we have to foot the bill ourselves, is $350 million now, after interest and inflation, it'll be closer to $1 billion. And so this is not just a matter of, are we going to lose out on a net total of 100 or 150 million. It is a lot more than that.
Zach was correct. I think one thing I would like to point out, so yes, I would be in favor of both of those things. One thing I'd like to point out about that building too is, I think if I have it correct, that current school is a huge energy suck. About 35%, the last I heard, of total energy in municipal buildings, 35% of all energy in municipal buildings runs through the high school. So if we're talking about climate resiliency and being conscious about things, that the high school is a great place to start. I also think anytime you can invest in schools, it's one of the few places I think you can see tangible return on investment. This is or would be an investment in the city of Salem. So anytime you're investing in children, it is a way to see some tangible return on that investment as well.
Thank you. And coming back to Ward 1, we'll start with candidate Erin Turowski.
So I think if you think about the numbers, it's a no-brainer. And the way I've been talking about it at the doors with people is to put it in terms of the finances. First, as Lydia was saying, it's a $450 million project. We are eligible for about half of that from the MSBA as a reimbursement if we can approve the bond, the debt exclusion now. If we don't approve that, we lose that funding, we delay the project, we have to reapply for the reimbursement later, and it will push the cost up closer to $1 billion in delay. A couple other things that haven't been mentioned yet. A new building is the least disruptive for students, projected to take 30 months versus 48 to renovate the existing structure. And as somebody who's very concerned about climate concerns myself, the building we have costs, I think, about $1 million a year to power. And I remember I went there for the first time for a League of Women Voters meeting, and we met in this giant brutalist cement library with huge windows, and it was freezing cold because that building just leaks energy like a sieve. So from day one, once the construction's finished, we can make this a net zero or net positive energy project, immediate savings, immediate reduction of carbon footprint. And it's really an investment in our future. It's something that we're going to have to pay for, and we don't have a good number for that yet, but I don't think we can afford to say no. I think what we're gonna lose if we say no vastly outweighs what we're gonna pay based on what we know now.
Thank you. I do not believe building a new high school is necessarily the right answer for Salem. What our students need most are stronger programs, not just a new building. We should be investing in preparatory classes for standardized tests, more guidance counselors, and expanded opportunities in arts, music, sports, and AP courses. These are the tools that truly prepare students for college and careers. The mayor will be presenting the proposed high school project to the council in the coming weeks. I look forward to reviewing the proposal, particularly the projected cost and whether the city's tax revenue can sustain them over the years. I'm concerned that in our current economic climate, the project could end up costing far more than anticipated. I believe more explanation in the scope and the cost of the project is essential for the community to make an informed decision, and I will reserve final judgment until we see the mayor's proposal. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm 100% committed to building a new high school for our students and our community. Personally, I would like to see my daughter graduate from the new high school in 17 years. But education is the foundation of everything. Economically, this is the most viable option rather than retrofitting the existing structure, as many folks have touched on. It's also what our next generation deserves. Our neighbors, workers, and next generation of leaders. It provides so much more than just four walls for our students to learn in. It instills confidence, builds communities, and allows our young people to maximize their full potential. And I also like to see that there is the expansion of the technical education side of things, which I believe we still need to expand here in Salem as well. So, yep, 100% committed on this one. Thanks.
Thank you. And now for the last question of the evening. And since I shuffled the alphabet a little bit, keeping you on your toes, we'll start with Ward 5, John Hunt, for the next question, or the last question. Transparency is viewed by many as lacking in decision-making by the City Council. How would you engage with residents, provide opportunities for input, and help them understand the reasons for decisions that are made?
I think that's a great question. I think transparency is extremely important. I think public trust is maybe not necessarily in Salem, but at an all-time low. I think it's important to meet people where they're at. So whether that is through social media, which is obviously very popular right now, continuing to knock on doors and talk with people face to face, holding community meetings, snail mail, whatever the case may be, I encourage those conversations. I'm not someone to shy away from tough conversations. So if I happen to make a decision that we don't necessarily agree on, I'm always happy to talk through that with anyone. In my professional life, I work in sales. I've been able to use that time to learn how to communicate effectively through various types of communication styles. So I'm confident that whoever I'm talking with, I'll be able to convey my points in a clear and concise way.
So I really view the role of a ward counselor is very similar to that of a community organizer, which is obviously why I'm running for this seat. It's important that we let the community know when things are happening and that we give them lots of advance notice and that we publicize that in tons of different channels. I think I obviously would do a newsletter if I was elected, but a newsletter is not enough. The city needs to announce things earlier and announce them with just much further outreach. I've gotten a lot of complaints about the city, mostly promoting things on Facebook and Instagram, which a lot of people are not on. For example, right, we need to promote on more channels further in advance. We also, to what John said, need to meet people where they're at. We need to go door knocking when it's not an election year. We need to go door knocking about specific community events. I went door knocking in January of this year around the ice for the South Salem train station stop meeting that was happening at the tail end of January because we knew that there was a meeting happening and we knew that most of our neighbors had no idea there was a meeting happening. So we went and we talked to people and we just shared the basic facts of the meeting. And the reason is that people need to be able to develop their own opinions on these things so that they can come to these meetings empowered and prepared to share their opinion, even if their opinion has totally different from mine. Their opinion still absolutely matters and needs to be heard at these community meetings. So.
All right, so I think in addition to what's already been said, I think another important part is, and I brought it up earlier, being clear on what the terms mean when we're discussing them as it comes to ordinances, when it comes to city, anything that the city is passing in terms of a law, an ordinance, even what it means at the state level and what that impacts the city as, right? How many people walking in here knew what AMI was? No hands went up. Okay, cool. Oh, good, some did. But that's kind of the idea, right? It doesn't do any good if we all sit here and explain to you the ordinance in great detail and you don't know what the vocabulary means. It becomes a kind of jargon. It becomes a way of sort of obfuscating what the ordinance actually looks like. So one of the things that I prefer to do largely, and I know it's unpopular, but to do a long form kind of essay explaining what this ordinance means, what are the terms that are being used, and why this applies, and how it would apply, so that it can demystify the whole thing. Not because I think anyone is less intelligent or less knowledgeable than myself, but because unless we're all using the same vocabulary, we can't have a conversation. Then everyone's going to start talking right past each other, and that gets us nowhere. And so that's an important part, not me trying to educate all of the constituents of Ward 5, but having people able to have a common conversation in a common language so that they can intelligently address an issue, and to also stop any second or third hand versions of what's actually being discussed. Oh.
People often feel like government is something that happens to them and not something that they can take part in. And what is critical to understand about this role that we're all applying for and that we're asking for your support on is that the constituent services portion especially is not a political one. It's been said up here already on this question, but we are not here to vet the concerns of residents. We are here to represent them and pass them on to the city. And I think that sometimes gets lost in this conversation. People want to feel heard. They want to feel like you are meeting them where they are, and we definitely need to be more proactive in doing that.
And we'll come back now to Ward 1, starting with Walter Morrell.
Across the board, I think Salem can do a better job with communication. Just look at our voter turnout as an example. It's pretty low. I think that is because, I was driving in Boston the other day, and they had signs across the city, their vote the day of it. That's something that we should just adopt here in Salem. Let everyone know. I mean, we're out as, folks running for the race, and we're having to tell people that there's actually a 9/16 vote. So there are actual clear examples of what we need to do. But in my professional role, I'm the Director of Education and Outreach in Boston. That outreach piece is key. I'm communicating every day, getting out messages about tariff changes, legal changes across the board to all 90 of our members and their 5,000 plus workforce. So it is vital to this role. I'll look to do and continue the work that our campaign has been doing for the last 4 months. I've been standing out at the commuter rail, meeting folks where they are in the field, at the ferry, where they actually go to work. It doesn't help, and at their doors, knocking, saying hello into the community, because you need to meet people where they are. Everyone has a different preferred communication method. If it's social media, if it's email, if it's in person, if it's letters, if it's door knocking. So we need to really meet those folks where they are and get the message across in a timely manner as well. I think that is also crucial. Thank you.
So I think veterinary medicine tends to attract people who are brutally honest. And I think that translates well into transparency. I think my former clients in the area would probably agree that I am brutally honest. I also, I'm used to teaching people. I opened the vet clinic at Essex Tech High School with Angel. I ran that for 3 years. So I'm used to communicating with people, telling them about things that they may not know much about. And I really think that's something that I can bring to this position, to communicate with people well and explain things that they may not understand. As far as city transparency, I think it's important to just be available at all times, or as much as you can. I don't have a car, so whenever I go out for a run or a walk, I'm always meeting people. Somebody's always asking me about this building or this sign or this stretch of road we're looking at traffic calming on. If I'm elected, I would want to start an e-newsletter for our ward. I think providing that electronically is environmentally smart, and I would also provide some printed copies bilingually for people who don't have access to the internet, leave them in little free libraries, leave them in cooperative businesses around the ward. I think attending neighborhood association meetings is very important. Those are a great way to disseminate information. And I think town halls should be considered as well, where maybe 1 or 2 different counselors team up and just have an open meeting, maybe every month or 2 or quarterly. I also submit my finances through OCPF, so the state keeps me accountable for my campaign finances. And we're not required to do that, but it's where I want to start being transparent with everybody with my campaign.
Thank you. I think the neighborhood associations are vital in the city. There's 4 of them in Ward 1. There's the Point Neighborhood Association, there's the Downtown, the Derby Street, and the Willows Neighborhood Association. And I try to attend each of the monthly meetings. Sometimes I can't make it because we're at committee meetings or council meetings, but I try to get to each one, and I like to meet the people in person. I like to find out what the issues are in the neighborhoods, and try to solve them and work with the neighborhoods. I just meet a lot of people. I am a walker. I walk through the ward constantly, going to the different festivals in the neighborhoods or the different community, the community outreach. It's a good way to meet people and just get out there and talk to people, and you get to know the neighbors. Thank you. That's fine.
All right, candidates, thank you for your responses to questions this evening. Please, let's give all of our candidates a round of applause. And now I will turn it to Julio Mota, who will close the event this evening.
Thank you. So, thank you to the candidates for running to serve Salem as ward city councilors, and thank you for sharing your ideas with the voters this evening. Thank you to the audience for listening to the candidates this evening to inform your voting choices on September 16. Our sincere thanks again to the Salem Public Schools and to Saltonstall School Administration for allowing us to use this space. And for the forum, and to Salem Access TV, who is taping the forum for those who couldn't make it tonight. Thank you to our interpreters, Daylene Munoz and Alexandra Fortich. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. So the League of Women Voters Salem has a website with a voter toolbox that's information on the candidates. The toolbox has profiles and their positions on several issues based on a survey sent by the League to the candidates. So the toolbox right now includes the ward candidates with preliminary elections. So that's 1, 2, 5, and 6. The remaining candidate information will be added after the preliminary of the 16th. This forum and 2 others recently hosted will be available on SATV's YouTube channel soon. So if you know people who are unable to attend the forums, again, they can view them before they vote on September 16th. The League of Women Voters, Salem, and our group, the Latino Leadership Coalition, will post links to the forums on their web pages. We're also working with partner organizations on forums after the preliminary on October 7, and the school committee, for at-large candidates and for the school committee candidates on October 7. Please remember to vote Tuesday, September 16. Tell your friends to vote also. Voting for Ward 1, Precinct 1 is at Bentley School on Memorial Drive. Ward 1, Precinct 2 is right there on 135 Lafayette Street, the community room. Voting for Ward 5 is right here at Saltonstall School at 211 Lafayette Street. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Please also vote in the general election on Tuesday, November 4th. Folks, good night. Thank you for coming.